All right. Hello, everybody, in the Wednesday webinar sessions. I have a really special guest again. It's the guy is coming from a legal industry. He's a lawyer, and he's supposed to work with lots of MSPs and addressing legal problems for managed service leaders and managed service practitioners. So I would like to introduce Stewart Feil to you from the US. Just give Stewart a little bit of background for us, how you get to this space and why you are enjoying and why you are really enthusiastic to give legal advice to these managed services.
Absolutely. So again, I'm Stewart Feil. I am a huge lover of technology, but rather than going that route in my education, I wound up going to law school. So rather than being out there actually hands-on with tech, I decided, you know what, I need to understand the legal side of things, and I love how I can make technology do cool things for my law practice, and I want to be able to help other businesses do cool things with technology, and so working in the MSP spaces and advising those types of companies becomes a really natural fit for me. I started by actually just saying, oh, businesses, you all have legal issues. You need to have some kind of legal consultant, especially in the small to medium-sized business space, and you don't want to be going out and getting yourself into trouble legally and then having to go hire a lawyer and deal with a big lawsuit. You want to be proactively protecting your business from the first perspective. When you start rolling, you want to be protected and you want to be looking forward prospectively at the problems that might arise. So that's the space that I come from the legal perspective in advising businesses. And taking that into the MSP space, there's some very particular concerns that bleed over from all of the legal regulations that affect any industry that an MSP might actually serve. And that's why I've put together what I've done and want to serve the MSP space in a much higher level and more directly focusing on developing
That's nice.
Greater service for those people.
Yeah, because what I see, and that's my bad habit, not liking lawyers. I'm sorry about that. Because what I see is that usually we can be proactive on legal issues and we can be reactive. Usually people are, holy cow, we had a problem, call the lawyer or something like that. That's one problem. The second problem, yes. I'm not able to, I don't know what concerns I should have, right? So if I call my local lawyer, he will bill me a lot to just even figure it out. So what I like in that your stuff is that you created some kind of structure around what the legal concern issues can be visible and make sure we as MSPs can address those type of problems. And because you can't give us legal advice based on the US law during like a webinar or something like that. That's why what I really like is that we have a guidance. It's like a pre-education, and then we can go and have legal advice on our local lawyers or local jurisdictions. So that's really like the concept around that. So just give me an idea that what do you think the major issues MSPs, and especially we are talking about virtual CIOs, so the managed services has some issues. And when you move to this virtual CIO level, the higher level consultation, things like that, you can have a different type of legal concerns around responsibility areas. So just give us the thought about that.
Okay, so one of the first thing that comes to mind is if you're working in that space, your clients aren't protecting themselves legally, then you are exposed to legal liability because you are in a position where you're responsible for data management for this company. You're responsible for all sorts of compliance rules, and there are a number of ways that you could get into trouble for your company and even personally if you are failing to have the right legal protections in place for your business and the right contractual protections in place between you and your client, and make sure that your client is actually doing things right with their technology. So there's a number of major compliance issues that come up There are issues of data loss protection that can absolutely destroy a company. They're scary,
But
but they're also easy to protect against. There's making sure that your employees in your MSP or as the outsourced CIO for this company, you have to make sure any engineers or staff that you have that have any access to the data have good agreements. Your internal corporate structure is highly important, making sure that you're doing everything right in regards to that. And then you want to make sure that you're managing all of your communications and you're doing everything right with your marketing in order to be in compliance and make sure that you don't have any issues where a regulation that applies to one of your clients somehow spills over onto you.
mhm,
So those are the big high strategic
structure.
issues that you need to be aware of.
So let's say the data loss stuff. It's like in my perspective, or I'm a kind of naive guy, and you know what? We had an agreement with a client. We are managing something on behalf of them, and that's one thing, like backups and things like that. And
Right.
yeah, there are lots of new type of viruses around there, like CryptoLocker, and it's really seriously can affect their environment. And when they get this kind of virus, the first thing what they are going to ask, hey, we had the antivirus from you, right? So why we even get this stuff? And what about the data loss? Because we lost data, we didn't want to pay to CryptoLocker, we get back the data, and we lost like a day
Right.
of job. Can they? I wouldn't say sue us, but is it something legally which we are exposed here?
Yes, absolutely, in data loss. In fact, um, one of the issues that you run into with data loss is 80% of companies that experience a data loss actually go out of business. So if you're responsible for that data loss, you're responsible for that company going out of business. That's a huge liability, a huge exposure right there. Uh, so having a good relationship with some data recovery people, in addition to anyone else that you're working with, having extra paranoid backups,
Yeah.
absolutely. Make sure that you are protecting your client's data. Um,
But
and it can be expensive to recover.
yeah, but my issue is the following: that you know what, these guys are paying a little money for backup. Even we have to say, you know what, if you are not getting a basic backup solution from our side, we are not serving you. Okay, I do that. So they're not really aware of the risk they are taking, and even they don't want to pay for that period. So we have a really little cushion of what we are able to do, because I know that we can do rocket science on backup and everything is paranoid and everything. However, the reality is that we pretty much hard to sell. And if you sell it and they lose the data, how they can sue us? Because you know what, their stuff, we just set it up. So you know what's I know that I'm naive, but but
Well,
basically, when we are get to the point when we can be liable.
the question of liability comes not from what you actually do, but what you can prove that you did, or what they can prove that you didn't do.
Oh,
So when you're looking at liability issues, really what it comes down to is what kind of records are you keeping of what you did, of what services you
okay.
offered,
Hmm.
of what loss prevention advice you provided, and of what access controls you put in place, what loss prevention you strategies you've implemented independent of the contract, and then making sure that you have a well-documented agreement that says, yeah, we specifically opt out of this service that you've warned us about, you've informed us that you
Yep.
have it, and it's a protection.
Yep.
And then making sure that you've got the right business insurance for yourself.
Yeah, okay, that's important. The business insurance, so we get it later on. But however, I
Yeah.
think most of the managed services have this general terms and condition when they sign up for the service that says we are not responsible for any time about data loss. You aware that you sign it up. So these type of clauses which can prevent us to getting liability, or this is weak. This is nothing to do with that.
Um, some of those clauses, a contract, of course, can be enforceable, and if you have good clauses in those, yes. However, you're going to want to make sure that that is reviewed
That's
and looked at by someone who really
yeah,
understands those clauses and the local laws that you're dealing with, because one state might say, or one national jurisdiction even, say you're
yep,
looking at Canada versus the state of Washington in the United States, the difference there could be immense in whether or not a
okay.
clause in the contract is even enforceable or a certain type of protection is even available.
Okay, that's a nice catch. So it should be because I think most of the MSPs are really, if they lose data, I'm fine, and that's like a good sleep
Right,
at night factor. But but probably we have to be worried a little bit or more have more attention on that stuff. What about the
right.
insurance? So that's another issue that we can cover by insurance on that.
Yes, almost any type of business, you can get very specific insurance that would cover loss prevention, something along the lines of uh, errors and omissions insurance coverage.
Okay.
And if you find yourself a good insurance broker who deals in businesses, and I highly recommend someone who is an independent broker, not someone who's
Yeah.
at one of the big companies like Allstate or State Farm or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Someone who can deal with a good array of insurance underwriters that can consult you, and ideally you should have that insurance consultant talk with your legal consultant so that you can actually make sure that both and your legal consultant and your insurance consultant need to understand your business
Business. Hmm.
well enough to be able to give you the solid advice that you need for the right decision on what
Yeah.
type of insurance to get
Yeah,
and what
yeah,
type of legal
because
protections to
in
have.
this data law stuff is like everything is moving to the cloud. So when they own the devices and they own everything, that was like okay, they lose data. It was like based on their infrastructure. Now they are using lots of other data
Right.
sources, and that's really important. The other thing which I'm
Hmm.
thinking on the based on a general MSP. What if we do more consulting work, virtual CIO kind of thing? What can be the additional liabilities based on our advice, based on our projects, based on our I don't know strategy or execution of that or things like that, or whether we are managing some other vendor projects, how we can be liable if something go off track somewhere, like how we can be liable if they are not shipping what they said, but we advise them and probably we get some commission as somebody. So how this type is working, because that's a pretty much new territory for managed services.
Actually, the CIO, the Chief Information Officer for a business, is a very new field to begin with, and the virtual Chief Information Officer, being someone who's outsourced doing that,
Yep.
is even newer. Uh, you've got a position where you're in a position of trust to advise someone on their business decisions. If you give them advice and they don't follow it, but you don't have any documentation of their not following it, they say, "Oh, you gave us bad advice." That can be a problem. One of the issues that you always need to be aware of is the question to ask is not, can they sue me? The question is whether or not you can win if they do. You can always file a lawsuit
Yeah,
against just
exactly.
about anyone.
Yeah.
It's whether or not it's a really strong lawsuit that's ever going to go
That's
anywhere.
one of the things European always laugh about US guys.
Yes, that's how we do. That's how we roll here.
No worries. So actually, that's
Yeah,
that's the main issue. So documentation about what we advise. So have some decent background on that. That's important. Okay.
absolutely.
What else we are exposing when we, let's say, for example, what my concern was like, some state you have to, if you get commission back from the vendor, for example, you have to say that, so you have to make sure
Right,
everybody knows that. Yeah, how is it working?
absolutely.
So what you have to disclose that, or
It depends. Again, that's an issue of states, that's state specific. But if you're getting a commission in a state that requires that disclosure, you need to be telling them, okay, I've got a vendor relationship here. I have a relationship with Microsoft, and they pay me commissions on reselling Microsoft Office 365. So I'm gonna set this up for you, but in our agreements up front, I'm just gonna tell you this is an additional revenue stream for me. So if you want to go in a different way, or if you want to go direct to Microsoft to make that, that's fine. You have that option. If you don't disclose that and they catch wind that you're selling them a bunch of products and getting commissions on them, then you wind up with an angry customer because you weren't straightforward and honest with them, and that angry customer is more likely to start picking apart what you have done to try and find a reason to sue you.
Okay.
To try and find that reason to say, hey, we want your commissions, or we feel like this is legal damages, you're double dealing, you're cheating us. So if you have a contract that has in writing, this is how we do business, and it's very clear on both sides, and they agree, yes, it's fine for you to use your chosen vendors where you get your commissions, and you've documented that, then you prevent yourself from having liabilities if they get wind of that.
Okay.
Disclosure is always good. Making sure that there's a clear understanding.
Yeah, because some part, what I see here is that a little bit shift of focus is that usually clients have a feeling that, we are picking lots of, hardwares for them, Microsoft stuff, which is basically the infrastructure. Right. They pretty much know how is it working, or just they don't bother with that, and usually that's open, that because the commissions are like 5-10%, and okay, this is like service fee or something like that, because you have to carry the devices, set up, things like that. But what I mean is that, and that's what I think is more important. Okay, Stewart, you have a legal company. You know what? You have this and that problem with your legal operation. And you know what? I heard about some really cool solution, and I create for you an IT strategy. You are paying me to create the IT strategy, and I'm including all those sort of solution to this IT strategy, which I'm really friendly with these guys, and I have something back. So what I see here is that if you are not vendor augmented, that means that, hey, this strategy is not honest, because it's your sales strategy. It's not it's not your strategy, it's my strategy. So so how I know that upfront it should be somehow disclosed. However, it can be the following. Okay, go ahead.
For example, what you're talking about is having a solution and then looking for a problem to fix it to.
Exactly.
Usually whereas the inverse is what people hire you for, is to say, hey, I have a problem, help me find a solution to it. Going out and selling a solution without understanding the problem is one thing. Selling the solution to the problem because someone presents a clear problem is another. So if you come in and you audit their IT system, right? You say, okay, these are the holes that I see, and if you go in with the attitude of, I bet this company needs Microsoft Office 365, or they need to start using SharePoint in this very specific way, and I've got the perfect canned solution with this SharePoint developer who does these awesome things for me, I'm going to go sell them on it. Okay, that's one thing, but if that's where you can run into problems, because you're actually just using it to mine money out of your client. You have a relationship with that client. You've got a position of trust with them. You need to make sure that the solutions that you're bringing to them actually fit the goals of their business and actually line up with the needs of their business. If you don't, that breaches your position of trust that you've established through the contract. And where they've contracted with you to be a trusted advisor, that creates the potential for you to be in what's known as a fiduciary role, a role of implicit trust where you owe a duty to serve them that is legally enforceable. And if you do something that is contrary to that duty, your legal liabilities are astronomical.
That's interesting because so I'm sorry that a trusted advisor is not just a buzzword. It's a legal kind of term. So it's like a legal situation.
Absolutely.
It's like when I'm saying, I'm going to be your trusted advisor because it's a cool selling tool. I become a different relationship legally with the client. Holy cow! I didn't know that.
Absolutely.
That's heavy. Okay.
Yes.
I'm a little bit shocked because it's because the practical things, how is it happening, is that you have a problem, I'm digging out this problem, and what we are usually do is that we are going to find some kind of solution which is good for you, and usually we are acting on behalf of you, but we say, do you have some kind of partnership possibilities, because probably we can resell you to more law companies, law firms, and they say, yeah, and you can have 20% discount. Holy cow, that's great. So I can give you back and say, Stewart, the thing is the following, we establish this partnership and we get 20% back. What if we cut it half? Usually that's our practice. Usually because if the vendor giving us discount, why not use it? And I digged out if that, but however, what you can say, Danish. My issue is the following. That was my problem. That was the first discussion. I was paying to you to figure out this guy. I don't care whether you did some kind of partnership. The full commission is coming back to me because I was paying to you to figure it out.
Now that's an interesting problem. Now, that's one of the reasons why it's important to have an agreement in advance.
Yep, okay.
Where you start running into problems legally is where you haven't disclosed something in advance, and then you get those commissions. If you have an agreement where you say, yeah, I'm going to get commissions, and I'm just going to throw all the kickback to you from my commission in a discount for whatever the service is that you're buying, that's fine. But if you get it in writing, we're just going to split it 50-50, whatever our commission is. That's fine too, perfectly enforceable. And if you say, hey, I get a commission, and they say, well, I can't take commissions, or I don't want to, I'm just going to trust you with that, you get the whole commission, that's fine too. But the point is, document it.
Okay.
Put it in writing. Make sure that they sign off on it in advance. Okay. And then stick to what you agreed to. Yeah,
because what I see, Stuart, and the biggest flaw here is the following, is that I'm really against people having the managed service contract, and they put this VCIO in top of that, right? So, because it's a great selling tool. But it's a totally different legal position. It's not just legal position, it's a different level of service, and there are lots of ways why you should have a different type of contract and different pricing and different thing for that. But for legally, you think that you are covered because your MSP contract was done by X years ago, and probably your lawyer is, figuring out that. But you have a different kind of position now, and that's really important. I didn't know that, so it's like. Thank you for showing me. Oh, I'm not sleeping well at night.
Yeah. Well, the chief information officer, right? The chief technology officer, you're managing all of the communications and all of the technology for the business, right?
The decision.
That's why. Yeah, you're a decision maker. You're there to tell because the CEO doesn't want to do it.
Exactly.
The chief operations officer doesn't want to do it. So that dumps it onto you. And the communications that a company has are where most of the legal liabilities come from for that company. So when you're looking at and the data management, that's where all of your compliance issues start coming into this. You're in charge of compliance. Ideally, you should actually have a chief legal officer working with a chief information officer or a chief technology officer to put together a cohesive plan that is fully implemented. But it doesn't happen yet. The virtual chief legal officer is even newer than the virtual
Yeah.
chief information officer.
Yeah,
It just
exactly. So my question is the following, because I think we are touching really sensitive ground that, for example, what I seen, and there are different high risk projects on the client base, ERP, CRM, those sort of things when you are disrupting the current operation, because you have to
right.
get rid of one system, get a new one, migrate all the data and things like that. And what MSP is doing really, they say, I evaluate the ERP for you. It's like an evaluation process. We go a couple of vendors, ask your, fit and gap analysis and things like that, and we say, you know what, NAV from Microsoft is a great fit for you, and go ahead. And even it can be a great solution in theory, but the project
Hmm.
going, people are involved, people, it's like an ERP project is a really, I'm sorry, it's really shitty one, because it's like really can go really crazy. and
Right.
and you done your evaluation and they screw up, lots of money involved, maybe a lawsuit, everything, because it's happening between the vendor and between the company, and you were the advisor on that. You didn't do anything on the project. Are you
Right.
can be liable on that?
It's possible, yes. One of the tricky things there is you get a lawsuit between your client and the vendor, and suddenly either the vendor or your client says, "Well, this person advised me, and this person needs to be brought into this."
Hmm.
You get some interesting things where it's called a uh, counterclaim or cross-claim or joinder of parties. There's a lot of legal mumbo jumbo around it where they
Yeah.
draw in a third-party claim and say, here's the vendor, here's your client. One of them, only one of them has to say, well, this CIO
Yeah.
needs to be part of this too, and
Oh,
they can wrap you in.
okay.
Now, whether or not you end up being liable at the end of the lawsuit, you still have to defend the lawsuit. And that is time consuming
Too expensive.
and finance consuming and a real headache. And um, it might take a couple of years to resolve it,
Yeah,
depending on where you
yeah,
are too.
because it's like always we have differently. I'm losing the deal, I'm losing the client, I'm losing my respect, and I'm losing a lot of money on a lawsuit. So it's like there are different stages on how bad things can happen. But
Uh-huh.
Yes.
obviously, everybody want to have the great relationship with the client and solve some way the problem. But what I see here is that because all these IT related, business related things are, one of them is engineering problem, the other is a human problem. You are mixing these
Right.
together. You have really juicy ground when it's like, oh, it's the technology can be wrong because that's technology. The human can be, because there's human. It's
Yeah.
really a risky, how to say, it's not risky if you are stating to every party and if you make sure what you do is a high stake environment. That's why you get the
Right.
premium. That's why you get 250 per
Right.
hour or more, because you are managing this stuff. That's not an issue with that.
Yes.
But that's really important to understand that was the documentation and cover S type of emails and whatever kind of stuff you have to make sure you done to nail down everything after you. That's really important. And my next question is that, what, we are
Absolutely.
like a 10-15 people company, and we
Hmm.
need to hire a new virtual CIO. And this virtual CIO will be in that position which we were talking about, right? So
Right.
he can screw up something. Where is
Right.
the client? Where is we as a client and the employee have the liability? That's one thing. The second thing, what it's always I see a fear from managed services. These guys too smart we have 10 people, we train them, we get to know how to do this stuff, and we have lots of clients, and they will figure out, hey, I can do it alone. I have a friend who has a tech knowledge. I have the IT management knowledge. That works well. I'm trained. I'm certified on virtual CIO. I spin up my new website, and even I can have a couple of new clients from based on my experience. So now
Oh, well,
what?
not only that, that virtual CIO, if they are doing their job right, has access to your database of all of your clients
He has
and
to have the
everything.
access
Yep,
everything.
absolutely.
And
So
okay.
the real key there is to make sure that you've got as the and even if you're from either side of that, you want to make sure that you have some good agreements on non-competition that are enforceable locally, and some good agreements on non-solicitation of client lists, and non-disclosure agreements to make sure that any information that is obtained by that relationship, if it's used ever for anything other than to serve that particular client, then you need to have a contract that basically says, sorry, but you are liable for that.
And how about the client? Because what if the client say, you know what, this is my VCIO, he didn't solicit me, I had a relationship, he didn't want to work with you, but he knew everything on our company, we spent lots of effort to train him how our company, what's our strategy, and I want him back because I bought the guy, not the company.
Right, and that's one of the challenges. It's I'm going to tell you a little story about someone who ran an MSP, and he had a partner in the business, and he was just trying to get out of the business and say, you know what, I'm selling out. I'm going to sell my shares to you, and you can go ahead and buy out my position, and then we'll do all these complex non-disclosures, non-contact agreements, not all sorts of things to protect your business so that I can't come in, start my own separate MSP and directly compete with you. And in that process, he winds up with this non-compete agreement and non-disclosure, non-contact agreement that is the guy who's keeping the MSP is trying to basically say, you know what, you can't do business with Microsoft. You can't talk to them ever, right?
Oh.
And he's like, oh really? Okay, I'll agree to that, and then I will make sure I copy the chief legal officer over at Microsoft so that on this agreement, so that they know that they can't talk to me, and then Microsoft is going to come in and slaughter you because you're interfering with their ability to do business with a third party. So
okay,
it's rough. You can't interfere with. You can't say I control the client's ability to do business with you. What you can do is you can control the service, like your former employee's ability to engage in business directly with your former clients for a limited period of time.
Yeah, exactly. And what we have in our clause, for example, with the client, that no solicitation clause as well, that you are not able to hijack our people as well. So it's like a three triangle or something like that. And you get back this non-disclosure agreement, and it's really interesting. It's usually you are a tech company, you never ever sign up a non-disclosure agreement with your clients. I haven't seen that in practice. If you are a business consultant, the first thing in your proposal is the non-disclosure agreement, right?
Absolutely.
So for example, if you see this stuff behind me, these are like business type of questionnaires, things like that. And what we've realized that it wasn't really, it was interesting when we did network assessment, when we were able to get all of their data raw format to our drive, they didn't care. When they had to say me what's the profit rate of the company, they wanted to have the non-disclosure. I just don't get it. But that's how the people are working, right? But when you are like a virtual CIO, you have a MSP, you have the virtual CIO, and you have your company. How these non-disclosures are, who is non-disclosure to whom, and so how is it working? Because now you have to put it in live.
Right. So you start with the virtual CIO. The virtual CIO has to have a non-disclosure agreement
with you, so with the MSP.
With the MSP to not take the MSP's databases. The virtual CIO also with your client, if they're outsourcing and saying, I'm the chief legal officer for, say, this hospital on behalf of this MSP, I'm going to come into this hospital and I'm going to make sure that we're taking care of the hospital's their technology needs. That virtual CIO is going to have access to client data for the hospital, which is protected by HIPAA, the health in the United States, the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, which means that virtual CIO and by proxy the entire MSP is also covered and regulated by HIPAA. So that virtual CIO needs to have a strong non-disclosure agreement with that hospital to not access any of the client data without authorization and to make sure it's protected. And then by proxy, since that virtual CIO is also using the MSP's resources and working from them, that MSP really should be taking care to be HIPAA compliant in itself, making sure that their data has the right lockdowns, the right access controls, and so forth, so that, again, we mentioned earlier, it's not about what you do, it's about what you can prove that you did. So that virtual CIO is going to be going into the hospital saying, okay, the doctors are going to have, and nurses and staff are going to have to be able to log in and access this patient data. That's great, we can do that, but then we need to make sure that there's the proper types of double authentication, the proper types of security to make sure that if there's a data leak, we can actually identify where it came from, and so on and so forth, and make sure that the only way to access it is through someone who is registered and identifiable to the system. Make sure that no one can delete anything, all kinds of great things. So your email correspondences in your MSP are now subject to HIPAA regulation, and you need to take if you're using a Microsoft Exchange server, for example, you need to set it up so that it's impossible to delete anything and everything gets archived and saved forever. Just to make sure that you're protected against anything happening with your client. Because if there's a data breach with the client, the first thing that they do is they start trying to track down, okay, where did it come from, what login ID was used, and if they can't track that down, they're going to start shuffling off and say, hey, virtual CIO, they might have access. That's going to be where they start pointing the fingers. And if you don't have the documentation to say, no, it wasn't me, they start digging further. It's like a Internal Revenue Service audit or a Department of Revenue audit for tax purposes. If you have a proper shield up where you're saying, okay, here's all of the things that I did, and everything is in order, you're protected. If not, they're going to find the last penny that's out of place and say, you owe us a bunch of money.
That's interesting is that I just checking your little document you sent me over that we haven't really covered like a fragment of the type of legal issues here, so I'm just a little bit scared. One thing which I would like to just, for a closing, I think what could be the most important thing for all of us, bread givers, is that what about our family and what about our personal issues about that? Because I can lose a company that's fine or something like that. But if
Right.
if the gates are not there, and I'm open, my kids
Right.
and everything, from because we are startups, all of the MSPs running really hard. We just
Hmm.
not nailing down everything, and it can be one little domino which is take off everything in the business and us. That's
Hmm.
just it's too high risk to carry. So just in the closing thoughts, that what do you think? What's the risk, or what the things are in personally the leaders or the
Uh,
owners taking?
okay, so to be aware of personally, there is what's called the corporate veil. That's a legal doctrine. It's the thing that that separates a business from the business
Yeah.
owners and from the business's officers. Uh, and they call it a veil, not a wall, for a very good reason. A veil is easy to remove, a wall is not.
Hmm.
Uh, the veil will offer the type of protection you need if you follow the right corporate formalities. So that means you need to identify what is the type of legal entity that I should have.
Yeah.
Should I have an LLC, an S Corp, a C Corp? You need to identify what are the rules that I have to follow in order to keep that in place. What are the records that I need to keep to show how I've made my decisions as a business, so that and how do I treat my bank accounts, most importantly. How you treat your money for your business and your personal life is key. If you're especially a small startup, you often it's very tempting to say, hey, my business income is my personal income, and I need to go buy some diapers for the kid. I'll just I know that there's money in the business account. I'm going to swipe the business debit card to pay for that. Well, did you make a record that you made an owner equity draw from the business in order to do that? Did you keep your books and say, yes, I was authorized as the owner to make that purchase because I'm pulling out
That's
part of
right.
my
Yeah.
equity? And the goal is draw a line around your private life and your business so that your private life stays private, your business life stays your business, and keep your assets separate so that you can protect your personal stuff, your home, your personal vehicles, all of the stuff in your house. You want to make sure that if something does happen, the worst case scenario to your business, someone sues you and it's a lawsuit that puts you out of business, that bankrupts your business
But not
and
completely.
you have to close your doors, but you don't have to turn over the keys to your home.
Yeah, that's the most important.
That's the
And
that's the most important.
and then what is scared me that if you are a better business, you're growing faster, you have the most because I've seen 15 people companies haven't really gone through. They have like accounting and everything right, and what you said, different here or there, but lots of personal loan back to the company here or there. It's like lots of
Right.
not closed doors, and that's and
Hmm.
one open door can just release the water. So it's like it's really there's a certain size when you have to make sure that this is in a structured way. So
Absolutely.
you know what
Absolutely.
I really think that the whole thing is much more interesting what I was thinking before. So it's like it's not because of we have so many it's an interesting topic about this trusted advisory role, all the finance and everything, and how you need to document this stuff. And my question is that we raised lots of questions and we raised lots of things here. And we have, I'm in Canada, some of them in Australia. Most of this stuff which you said, it's applicable in every
Right.
Western kind of country, but we have our own lawyers and things like that. And what I somehow need, I think, for other people to have somebody who can pre-qualify us to go with the specific questions to the specific lawyers and not spending so much money on figuring out
Absolutely.
what I should ask, right? So I don't know what you have for that, or
Absolutely.
or what, how we can get touch on you, or touch base, or what do you think the best approach for our clients to if they have a question, or do you have a product, or so you know how to move it forward if you are interested on that?
Oh, absolutely. So I like to actually serve as a virtual chief legal officer for
Okay.
companies. And for the in the MSP space especially, there's a lot of questions to be asked. And I will come in as the legal consultant, being able to say, okay, these are the things, the issues that we need to make sure that are covered, and we need to identify what your local laws have to say
Okay.
about these particular issues. And then we need to make sure that you cover them. And I can guide you through the process of doing a lot of that on your own, and let
Okay.
you know exactly when it is that you have to go talk to local counsel and say, I need to hire a local attorney to do
Okay.
this.
So it's like
So,
a local self-assessment, like based on some questions. I know that's fixed, that's not fixed, and somehow guide you that I have to close all the doors here or there. So that's which
right.
I'm kind of looking for as a best practice.
Absolutely. And since businesses grow and new challenges
Yeah.
arise, the law changes, I like to offer that as an ongoing service that is available for as long as you think you
All
need
right.
it. Um,
So my question is, so you don't have that right away, because how we have this audience is in a typical early adopter, because we haven't released our software yet. So these guys who are we working,
right.
it's really early adopters. So I think it's a great chance to have something together, because probably these guys can help you about all the questions and things like that, and help you start to formulate everything. So that's a really nice area. So guys, just knock the doors.
Right.
And just in the end, Stuart, and we are going to give every details in the section you see the video. Uh, what the three closing thoughts or advice or something like that you just have for closing this section, which you think have to make or summarize this stuff to wrap this up?
Um, Proactive defense is the best defense available. Go out and actually look for a solution now, and I start identifying problems now rather than letting them come up and bite you and destroy you. Make sure that you surround yourself with good professionals who can give you advice and help you to be free to run your company and focus on the thing that you want to do,
Exactly.
so that you're not sitting there saying, oh, what do I do with this bylaws for my company or something like that.
Right.
How do I reword this contract specifically for this situation? Get someone who you can trust, because you're looking to be in a trusted advisor position yourself. Learn how to work with trusted advisors, and help your clients build a team just like you build a team around yourself.
That's really nice, because I really like what you are doing, because usually I'm really bad at this type of stuff, and usually it's starting to figure out this stuff all the time is just killing me, and give like
Right.
3-4 hours in an idle position when I'm just stuck. And usually
Right.
what my problem was that because I knew that I call my local lawyer, it was like, holy cow, it's like days when we are able to get aligned what's my problem and things like that. So I really like this guidance to see through what to do and send over to someone, and this I know that's done in a way because the industry knowledge are there. So I really like that concept. So Stuart, really thank you very much for your help, because it was like lots of I was spinning my wheels on this trusted advisory stuff, but it's
Right.
yeah, it's a little bit serious stuff, and yeah. So personally, thank you very much for the advice, and
You're welcome.
let's see how we can help each other more in the next few months. So thank you very much, Stuart.
Absolutely. Maybe we can talk again on some of the other topics from the outline that we
Yeah,
had originally planned too. That'd be
cool.
great.
Thank you, Stuart.
Thank you.
Okay, so that's I'm going to cut. So
Okay.
that is great. Actually, that is really great. So
Awesome.
because you know what, I think if you create some kind of product
Right.
Usually this type of self-assessment is always works because they sign up for that and you can push your materials after that and they see what the holes, because the problem, they like me, we don't know what the holes are, and there are many. So this like trusted
Right.
advisory stuff, that's huge, because you make your, it seems like you are a smart guy and give some advice, but that's you have to be responsible for those, and that's like that's serious. So
Right. When you're giving advice, general education is one thing, like this
exactly,
type of webinar
yeah,
where we're saying,
yeah,
hey, there's information out there. When it's giving specific advice,
that's
man, that's when you start saying, okay, I'm giving you advice. I'm putting myself into a position of trust and risk.
yeah.
I've got to be compensated for the risk, and that's what your CIOs have to be able
Yeah,
to do as
exactly, and
well.
that's why you have to charge for that accordingly, because it's not just
Absolutely.
chit chat. It's like you give your skin on the game. So that's
Exactly.
awesome. So I'm going to produce this video, I think, in this week, because I had 4 meetings and I have 3 in a row in 5 minutes. I just totally packed. So
Yeah.
I'm going to put it on the education material and I'm going to promote it ourselves. And what I'm thinking is that probably I'm going to make it like it's like in a blog, so it's more people will see, and then we
Right.
put it inside. So I'm going to figure out how we can leverage you better,
Okay.
and I let you know and see where, and you can share it on your social media and things like that. So
Absolutely.
and see what we can do next, because I really see that there is lots of value you can bring to this table for the guys,
Yes.
and yeah, awesome. So
Awesome.
cool,
I'm
thank you.
excited because I think that this is a really uh, the MSP space is a really good space to work
Exactly.
in. I think there's a lot of great things going on there. It's a dynamic space. It's
Yeah.
never boring.
Yeah, and the other thing is that
And
these people have to change their behavior with the clients. It's not just, hey, okay, I'm fixing your cables. They have to go and
right,
involved in the business, and they go into the
mhm,
space which they not prepared for, because that the space is
right,
not what they did before, right? It's like, hey,
right.
yeah, you have to put your skin on the game. It's not just so yeah, it's like
You're not just a repair guy
exactly.
anymore.
It's
You're yeah,
yeah. It's, you are talking about business and business opportunities, and you have to take care of the business risk as well. But
absolutely.
you are in a much more. The stake is much higher now than it was before. That okay, I screw up a ticket, and who cares? Okay,
Right.
so thank you to opening our eyes, and I would like to follow up next week something to how to make it
Okay.
further. So thank you. And I'm going to give you some advice, not advice, sorry, a reference who
Right.
have access for much more MSPs who I know, the HTG group, and
Okay.
I think they can do with this kind of stuff. So if I think
Awesome.
they will see this video, they will understand why I want to connect you guys, because
Right.
like they are talking about in these peer groups about what if you die, what if your partner dies, legacy stuff,
Right.
and everybody is open, and that's fine, okay, but how we do that?
Right.
So cool asking these questions, but okay, how? So
No, let's figure out how to do it.
yeah,
Let's go do
that's
it.
the issue.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much, Stuart, and keep going.
Awesome. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great day, Danish.
Thank you for you as well. Bye.